This is Chris Lee of Southeastern 14, presented by Bearded Iris, here to talk about SEC baseball happenings from Saturday, May the 20th. We've got co-champions, ladies and gentlemen. Arkansas and Florida are your co-champions of the SEC. Did a previous version of this video, which I've now deleted because I didn't accurately reflect that in the video. Wasn't intentional, but let's take that and move on. Let's start in Gainesville, where Florida, I don't think, has led the SEC or even shared the SEC lead coming out of a weekend all year, but the Gators claimed a co-share of the SEC title, as well as the tournament's overall number one seed for next week in Hoover, with a 5-2 win over Kentucky. In that one, Jac Caglianone has his second straight good start. He goes 7 innings, doesn't give up a run, walks 3, gives up 4 hits. And look, the Gators, if they get that kind of pitching from him, they might be the team to beat, not just in the SEC, but in the country potentially. Because when Florida's got its 3 guys on the weekend going and its bullpen is okay, that lineup's tough to beat. And that's what happened in Lexington this weekend. Pitching was better, and the hitters did what they did. Luke Heyman hits a home run in that one for Florida. For Kentucky, Austin Strickland goes 6 2/3, gives up 3. Grant Smith, their shortstop, that is Kentucky's shortstop, who's not much of a hitter, has kind of been on a little bit of a home run tear lately. He hit 1 this weekend. That is his 9th. The Gators, again, claim the co-championship. They will be the 1 seed in the tournament. 5 RPI. Florida will be a no-doubt 2-weekend host. For Kentucky, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Cats, because a number 2 RPI, but a 16-14 record. My guess is Kentucky will host. We'll get into hosting and other things in another video, but wanted to maybe give some bits and pieces on that there, because that is what is on people's minds exiting the weekend. Now, Arkansas. I know Arkansas fans are disappointed with the way things went in Nashville, because Arkansas won game 1 going away and then lost the last 2 as Vanderbilt came back in both games to win. The Commodores have not been hitting at all recently, but hit in the final 2 games of this one. For Arkansas, the top of the order, Josenberger, Wagner, and Borfin just didn't hit yesterday like they are capable of. Starter Hunter Holland goes 2 2/3 innings. Frankly, didn't look like himself. Gave up 4 runs, 8 hits. Vanderbilt really looked like it was sitting on whatever he was throwing. Will McIntyre goes 2 1/3 in relief, which was a little surprising because he threw, I think, 54 pitches on Thursday's game. But anyway, the Razorbacks lose this one 7-6 for Vandy. Ryan Ginther, who's a reliever who had never made a start, starts, gives Vandy 4 innings of 2-run ball. Neither of those runs were earned because the defense fell apart behind him on a potential double play ball. I think the story for Vandy, David Horn, Grayson Moore, Grayson Carter, Nick Maldonado combined to go, what would it be, 4 1/3 scoreless innings to close that out. Home run for Vandy by Troy LaNeve. He's hit 2 this season. They were in 2 consecutive at-bats, ending Friday night and his first one on Saturday. Vandy at 19-11, the SEC grabs the 4 seed in the SEC tournament. It's going to be hosting a weekend, and I wouldn't guarantee to, but it's looking hard to find a scenario where Vandy doesn't host 2 weekends, given the body of work the Commodores accumulated and what's behind them. Could change, but Vandy certainly is going to host 1 weekend and has got to be feeling pretty decent about his chances to host 2 going into conference tournament play. Okay, Arkansas is the co-champ in the sole champion in the West, because LSU lost a game to Georgia 9-5 in Athens. And if I tell you how LSU lost, well, it's not going to be a surprise. It was pitching. Javon Coleman, Sam Dutton, Christian Little, Blake Money, none of those guys were any good. Griffin Herring was. By the time he took the mound in the 7th inning, too little, too late. Georgia gets home runs from Charlie Condon, his 25th, from Connor Tate, his 16th. The Bulldogs get, have 7 guys go. It got a little dicey at the end. LSU had the bases loaded with 1 out in the 9th against Colin Caldwell and Nolan Crisp. Could not crack through. So Georgia is going to Hoover, which was a little bit up in the air after Friday night's games. LSU at 19-10. 42-13, will be the 3 seed in the tournament. LSU is going to host 2 weekends in the NCAA tournament. Georgia just hoping to get to Hoover. I don't know if Georgia can do enough to get into the NCAA tournament, barring winning the whole thing down there. So there's that. But anyway, Georgia will give it a go next week in Hoover. I guess actually this week now, since we're doing this Sunday, and see what they can make of it. Okay, Missouri and Auburn played the deciding game in Auburn yesterday. Auburn wins that one 9-7. Home run from Nate LaRue in that one. Ike Irish, their fine freshman, gets 3 hits. For Auburn, Tommy Vail goes in relief, gives 2 innings of 1-run ball. Did not expect to see that. Will Cannon finishes that one up to get the win with an inning and 2/3 scoreless. For Missouri, and I forgot to mention this on Saturday's video, shout out to Luke Mann. He ended the regular season as Missouri's co-career home run leader all time. He's got 49 of them. He'll try to get 50 in Hoover, where the Tigers will be heading with a 10-20 record after the events of yesterday. Missouri is now in Hoover. The Tigers would have to win that event to get anywhere. For Auburn, this is going to be fascinating because the Tigers have a 16 RPI, and that is host worthy, but you've got literally 9 SEC teams that have got a hosting argument. How the committee sorts that out, I'm not sure. I would think Auburn, if I had to guess, is going to be in, barring some crazy happenings elsewhere. 17-13 in the SEC, that is good enough for 5th. I would think that would be good enough, but you've got some teams on the hosting bubble that are ahead of Auburn in the RPI. How the committee sorts that out, I don't know. But congratulations to Butch Thompson and the Tigers of Auburn for winning that game 9-7, finishing 17-13, sole share of 5th place in the SEC. And we will see what Auburn can do in Hoover to bolster its seed, or maybe even, who knows, move up a couple of lines. Our channel is presented by the Bearded Iris Brewing Company. The Sylvan Supply location in West Nashville is home to Black Dynasty's secret ramen house. You'll find a wide variety of comforting bowls of meaty and vegan-friendly ramen with house-made noodles alongside rotating weekly features, seasonal sides, salads, and desserts. Check them out in the West Nashville location and thank them for sponsoring a channel here at Southeastern 14. Okay, interesting doubleheader in Columbia, South Carolina, and it's just a tale of 2 games. In this one, this game is, I think, 1-1 after 5 complete. Chase Dollander for Tennessee is just mowing people down in a way that he did not do most of the year. He'd given up 2 runs, both those earned in 5 1/3 innings. He'd struck out 13 guys and only thrown 82 pitches. It is hard to strike out 13 guys with just 82 pitches, but that's the kind of day Chase Dollander had. So Tony Vitello pulls him, and I didn't see this, but I think it made Tennessee fans mad on Twitter from what I've heard, and they go to Chase Burns, who has been up and down to say the least. More good than bad lately, but when it goes wrong, it really goes wrong, and boy, it really went wrong in Columbia. Tennessee ends up giving 5 runs in that inning. 4 of them are charged to Burns, 3 earned charged to Burns, and ends up losing that game 6-1. Braylon Wimmer, who's been out for Carolina, has been back now for a couple of weeks. He DHs and hits a home run. The Vols just had to be bitterly disappointed with that outcome, but had a chance in the second game, and this was a 7-inning doubleheader to make it right, and boy, did Tennessee do that. Drew Beam, who's been probably more down than up lately, but had a tremendous season a year ago, goes 6 innings, gives up 1 run, strikes out 4. A.J. Russell, the Vols were taking no chances with an 11-run lead. He closes things out with a scoreless inning to end it. For South Carolina, the bullpen, Becker, Hicks, Sweat, Simpson, none of them did much good. The Vols get home runs from Griffin Merritt, Christian Scott, and Cal Stark. Going to be very interesting to see how the committee shakes this one out. And by the way, the final score in this one, if I didn't mention it, 12-1 Tennessee. South Carolina leaves the weekend as the number 6 RPI team with a 16-13 record. The metrics should be good enough to host. I think 2 weekends is going to be off the table for Carolina, barring a run in Hoover. For the Vols, 17 RPI, 16-14 in the league. That puts Tennessee squarely in hosting territory, But again, the problem is you've got 9 SEC teams that have legitimate hosting cases. I don't think the committee is going to give the SEC 9 teams. We will see. That would be great if it did. But the Vols have got a couple of blights on their resume. Road record would be one of them. Non-conference strength of schedule will be another one. I'll get into comparing Tennessee's resume probably to some other hosting teams in our NCAA tournament video that we'll do with regional projections. I'll probably put that out Monday. I've got some other things to do, including all SEC teams, maybe a conference tournament preview video, but in any case, we will get to that a little bit more. But the problem for the Vols is you got 8 other SEC teams trying to also host at least one weekend. So I don't know how the committee is going to go through that. But anyway, if you're Tennessee, I think Tennessee was 5-10 against the first half of the SEC schedule, ends up 16-14. So do the math. That's 11-4 on the back half of the SEC schedule. And that is something certainly that will be mentioned, I'm sure, when Tennessee's name comes up in discussion. For Carolina, the hitting woes are just hard to explain. Sometimes it's the ballpark. Lately, the Gamecocks aren't hitting inside Founders Park much at all. Get shut out in the opener, get 1 run on 5 hits on Saturday. I know some of that's his injuries, but boy, Carolina really going through a funk right now. Okay, the last game to talk about is A&M wins a slow-pitch softball game with Mississippi State. In that one, Trevor Werner hits 2 home runs. Hunter Haas hits another one. He's had an outstanding season. Brett Minich hits 1. The Aggies pound out 15 hits and take 3 walks and turn that into 15 runs in a 9-inning game for Mississippi State. The pitching struggle was familiar. I'm not going to go into that. Dakota Jordan and Slade Alford hit home runs. State will be staying home from Hoover. And you heard Chris Lemonis address his future in the press conference yesterday. Sounded confident he'll be back for another year, but clearly at the same time, I think made it clear he was not assured of coming back, but it seemed like he felt like he had a good grasp on how to fix the problems and that he felt like he and his AD maybe were on the same page. We'll see how that goes this week. Of course, he threw a pitching coach on the altar in Scotty Foxhall when he fired him a few weeks ago. Don't know if that will or won't be good enough, but certainly even with no baseball being played in Starkville from here until next season, going to be interesting, and a lot of eyes will be on Starkville to see what State does there, whether it makes a coaching change, whether it does not. And remember, this is the second straight bad season in Starkville, but of course, 2 seasons ago, the Bulldogs won the whole thing for the first time in school history. For A&M, 14-16 now in the league. I'm not going to say anything's a slam dunk, but hard to imagine the Aggies being left out of a regional. Might even get a 2 seed at this point, depending on what happens in Hoover. So really, you figured coming into the weekend that 10 SEC teams were going to make the tournament, but A&M really needed to win a couple of games, and especially after losing the opener in this one, that left things in doubt a little bit. But closing that one with 2 wins and 3, 14-16 in this SEC. I don't know how that doesn't get the Aggies in the NCAA tournament, but I guess we'll wait and see. And again, we'll talk about them a little bit in our SEC tournament regional preview, or excuse me, our NCAA regional projections, and we may do a preview of Hoover too. All right, I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching. If you hit the like button, that helps our analytics. If you hit the subscribe button, that helps us out a little bit too. A subscribe is basically a free follow, so it costs you nothing. Anyway, thank you for watching our videos. We'll have more baseball content coming at Southeastern 14, and we'll see you again very soon. In fact, on Monday with more of that.